Alright then, hello everybody, this is the EpicGamingGuru, and this time I'm back to ask you guys a very good question, and I have to ask you all this very important question very thoroughly. And since I've been gone for the past couple of months, well, it's to be expected I'm going to be very rusty. Anywho, despite all that, there is something I have to ask you. Is Hunt Showdown becoming very repetitive to you, or is becoming incredibly obnoxious? In other words, just repetitive over and over and over and over again? If the answer is yes to these questions, then you're into the right place, because right now I'm going to discuss something that's kind of a very important question to ask yourselves when it comes to Hunt Showdown, let alone the fact that it is an extraction shooter. What can Hunt Showdown do to honestly bring back its player base, and also if a rework is actually something that should be brought onto the table, because it's not exactly 100% off of it either. The idea of Hunt Showdown requiring a rework to me is actually kind of an interesting concept because of the fact that the core gameplay mechanics of the game just requires a player to basically get a bounty, extract, and then repeat the process over and over and over again. Hunt Showdown has been this way for years at a time, and it hasn't had any major changes or fixes since then, aside from maybe a couple of UI changes, which I've already made a whole video and discussed about, and as well as discussed the entire Judgment event being a very good successor and actually helped Hunt Showdown overall. But then here comes another problem. Hunt Showdown has been losing peak players for the past couple of months, and that could be for a couple of reasons, whether it been from the odd clown event, or maybe some negative effects from other things such as bugs and glitches, or maybe just in general the horrible UI that was implemented with 1896. But since these problems have been resolved and things have been going a little bit more smoothly with the Hunt Showdown, I would have expected the Hunt Showdown would have actually been doing better overall. Since Hunt Showdown has been going up and down on a roller coaster for the past couple of months, I would have expected Hunt Showdown to at least have some sort of clarity as to what it's going to do in the near future with its player base. However, that's not the only thing that's kind of concerning here. The problem is that Hunt Showdown itself has always had a majority of issues when it came to being able to establish a player base that's willing to keep constantly playing the game, which is very difficult to do with any extraction shooter to begin with in general. Now, I'm not saying that this game is in a bad state of play. Hunt has always kept its player base active and going because of the earnable blood bonds you can earn per week, but unfortunately that has drummed down to about 50 compared to how years ago where you're able to earn blood bonds just by simply playing the game on a daily basis, which is what mainly kept its servers up and running for so long. But since this feature has since then been removed, and weekly challenges have obviously been the main key point for Hunt Showdown for almost nearly 2 to 3 years now, it makes sense why players are only active in certain times while this game is offering something for them to do. It's really funny to even discuss this, because the thing that I find kind of hilarious is that Hunt Showdown also had a lot of incentives beforehand in order to make sure a player was enjoying the game. Prime example was the trial runs that are no longer available in Hunt Showdown because players found them to be a little bit less interesting compared to just constantly bounty hunting in the game, which is fine to an extent, but by doing so, you get rid of another game mode that was available in the game for players to enjoy. It added something a little bit extra for players to do in order to be able to get something done for an extra bonus of blood bonds, a skin, or something earnable. The player can at least have some sort of incentive to continuously play the game, and that's where the real big issues with Hunt Showdown lies, where a lot of the incentives in the game, since there's nothing but earnable cosmetics to gain in the game, and there's really no other point of playing Hunt Showdown as of right now at this rate aside from just earning blood bonds and getting skins, that is the main issue that I see that's going to be causing Hunt Showdown to run into more issues as time moves on, because instead of the player base working on something to, I don't know, make them want to continuously play the game, what are they going to do once they earn these cosmetics? What is the player going to do after they've already gained so much blood bonds and basically just continuously hunt constantly? You start to lose interest because there's not really that much incentives in the game to continuously play aside from just getting skins. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. That is the only incentive for Hunt Showdown. What makes it different from any other extraction shooter then? Now, I understand that Crytek has also changed a couple of the areas around certain maps and locations to be able to add more sneaky ways to get inside buildings, maybe different changes amongst how things work from both underside and on top of things when it comes to buildings, but just changing certain entry points and changing certain things that are very minute in detail doesn't really add more of a replayability factor into Hunt Showdown. That's just changing a little bit of concepts on a map, and that's it. It's still the same areas, still has the same original entry points, just has new ones added into them. Changing certain buildings and areas in a map is actually not a bad thing. Adding new entry points to these locations is also a welcome addition, which I have to admit was something that I did not expect for Crytek to even bother to linger into, but it's always nice to be able to sneak cheeky breaky my enemies when I get a chance. One interesting note that I do have to say about all of this is that Hunt Showdown's always been relying on events since the start. In fact, if we can all remember, Hunt Showdown has been basically just throwing out events in order to be able to keep the game alive and active with its player base, which is not a bad thing. But then here comes the other issue with the complaints about these events. A lot of these events are basically copy and paste of their original, just added with slightly different gameplay mechanics on each one, but they're all visually and about nearly the same on every single one. Now I'm going to go ahead and point out and say that don't get what I said twisted. Notice how I said nearly every single one. There are a few cases where Hunt Showdown does have unique events that are completely different from their prior versions, but most of the time it's usually kill this bounty, get more tokens, kill this bounty, get more tokens, break this totem, break this thing, get more tokens. Oh, you could spend it here to get a different unique trait that's based around the event. Yeah, you see where I'm going with this? If we're going to include all these events into Hunt Showdown, at least I could see them doing is at least trying to maybe find a way to keep them more unique. Like maybe there's only earnable tokens through like a shooting range or something, and you can only earn them by shooting a certain distance or whatnot or something like that. And yes, I get it. People will get mad about that because, hey, I'm shooting. People know where I'm at. That's a big problem. Well, at the same time, it's at least a risk factor, and it could also earn you more tokens because of the fact that you have to shoot in order to be able to earn it. Yeah, what I'm talking about is just a very minute detail as to what they could do with any form of future events, but it would be an interesting concept nonetheless because, again, it adds something a little bit different and new into Hunt Showdown. Not exactly a full rework kind of thing, but that's more or less of an event-based kind of thing. But overall, just to end this video here, the final question that we have to ask ourselves is Hunt Showdown going to require rework or does it not require rework? I'm going to have to say yes on my part, but I would really love to see what you all think of this because the idea of having Hunt Showdown stuck the way it is now, where it's just using nothing but blood bonds and events in order to be able to keep its player base active and alive, is kind of a dying concept for this game because of the fact that it's already been done several times over. Either way, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Comment and tell me what you guys think they should add into Hunt Showdown as a possible rework or a new addition into the game. Either way, hope you all are having a nice day. This has been EpicGamingGuru. Like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed the video that much, and I'll see you all next time.